I wrote all through my book.
So many stories of people being stupid. It's easy to
That's
get
right.
confused.
I frankly didn't think there were enough stories of people being stupid in this book.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Hold on to your buttholes. This might get weird.
Salutations. You're for some reason listening to Furk'd in the Burt, a voyage to Uranus. What is wrong with you? Stop now. This is a podcast by Portland, Oregon's worst band, Molly Bang, who would rather yak about music than actually rehearse. Shit. Stop now. This is a podcast by Portland, Oregon's worst band, Molly Bang, who would rather yak about music than actually rehearse. Shit. Salutations. You're for some reason listening to Furk'd in the Burt, a voyage to Uranus. What is wrong with you? Stop now. This is a podcast by Portland, Oregon's worst band, Molly Bang, who would rather yak about music than actually rehearse. Salutations. You're for some reason listening to Furk'd in the Burt, a voyage to Uranus.
I didn't know much about D.O.A. I knew that they were in our heavy rotation and when I was on the radio in college. And I had Last Scream of the Missing Neighbors, but I didn't have any D.O.A. stuff.
This episode Molly Bang talks about the book Shithead, A Life in Punk by Joey Shithead Keithley, a Canadian musician who founded the legendary punk band, D.O.A., in 1978.
I have War on 45. I bought that in about 82, and then I went back.
Early adopter.
Yeah, and then I went back and looked at listened to the two records before that while reading the book.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it.
Which two?
Hardcore 81, and the one after that, which I forget the title of.
Let's take a break to appreciate some important emojis. Cool? Face with money symbols on the eyes and tongue. Musical notes. Hand with medium skin tone making the sign of the horns. Smiling pile of poo. Now, stay tuned. This is what's coming up.
And they just piled on and shit right on the pile of shit anyway.
Sergeant Nick Penis Band. Which is, I mean, that's one of the greatest band names I've ever heard.
Fuck you, David Lee Roth. I'm gonna get you in a headlock, you know?
Is saying that she had a big brown beaver a good thing or a bad thing then? I've always been confused by that song.
It's the same cover as Prince. and he jacked off to that just as much.
Yeah, probably. Except for we were both in our early 20s, so I was just like, yeah, I'll take it.
Sure.
You know, definitely.
Yeah. I'm going to jack off with or without this.
Exactly, yeah.
Fudge Tunnel and Cat Butt. And their album was called
Journey to the Center of Cat Butt.
Well, what really put it over for me was When You Lent Me, Our Band Could Be Your Life. And it just talked about how they were the pioneers through America and Europe.
Yep.
And then Black Flag came through. Black Flag even claims they came before them. That's not obvious in the book from this.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But they preceded all of those, like, do-it-yourself tours.
Mm-hmm.
And they were doing it from Canada with even less support, really,
Right.
than those other early hardcore tours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they didn't care if there was a following.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what I
they were
love.
just like, we're going to just go and play. We have these shows set up. They'd get there. They were canceled, you know, a lot of times.
Cursed
so
out or thrown out halfway
7
through,
people there.
or-
Yeah.
Were you a fan, Scott, before the book?
I thought I was a bigger fan than I actually was. I think I got them mixed up with MDC and other punk stuff that I had. So I have the Lost Tapes.
Snooze fest. Shut up. Let's take a break and listen to a song by our good friends 87. This is an effin' song about wanting to make love to Kanye West. It's called Kanye West. Motherfucker.
Nobody can love him like I can. Not Taylor Swift or Kim Kardashian. I wanna gaze into those big brown eyes. Then I wanna give him a big surprise. I know I can treat him the best. I wanna make love to Kanye West. to Kanye West. Kanye West. He's the best, he's the best, he's the best. Kanye West. He's the best, he's the best, he's the best. I know he's great, and so do you. But nobody is willing to do what I'll do. I wanna touch that big brown bar. Then I wanna gaze into the face of God. I know I can treat him the best. I wanna make love to Kanye West. I know I can treat him the best. I wanna make love to Kanye West. Kanye West. He's the best, he's the best, he's the best. Kanye West. He's the best, he's the best, he's the best. Kanye West. He's the best, he's the best, he's the best. Kanye West.
which came out 20 years or something after they started. And I listened to it over and over and over in the car. And I feel like that, and I listened to their first two albums too recently. And none of the songs really, like, I like all of it. It's early punk. But
Right, yeah,
it
what's
didn't
not to
stand
love?
out. It wasn't like melodic. And then a week ago, almost all the tracks on the Lost tapes kind of stuck. And I was like, this is good. But yeah, I knew nothing about them.
I didn't particularly care for the prologue that he wasn't going to tell the stories about all the drunken debauchery. I was like,
Yeah.
Right.
dude, that's the story.
That's why
Right,
we're reading
exactly,
this
yeah,
book.
yeah.
One of his kids got a role in Look Who's Talking Now.
Right.
I thought that
Two.
was so, yeah, I
The
thought that
second
was so funny and like unexpected, and I was very disappointed we didn't get to hear more of it.
Right.
Like,
He's clearly a music lover, not like, I hate everything on the radio and I'm rebelling against that. No, I mean, the guy's covering Bachman Turner Overdrive.
Right.
I think that was the most surprising thing about his musical taste was Bachman Turner Overdrive, who
Yeah.
I've always disliked.
But you're not Canadian.
yeah,
There must be something about that.
Well, it sounds
Canadian
like
pride.
they're cool guys, and it sounds
does.
like they put on a great live show. To me, they've been like a two-hit wonder that
dad music.
I've heard a million times. And I never liked that song Taking Care of Business until I heard them cover it, and I think
Yeah.
it's a really good cover. But to their credit, though, that is, I mean, to be a band that maybe played arenas or whatever, and then you're hanging out with D.O.A., I mean, that to me was
Right.
pretty cool.
I love that story when they're kicking him out of a bar and Biafra's like, I'm not playing unless you let Shithead back in the bar.
Yeah,
And
that
it's
was
like,
Francisco.
great.
clearly, you know, they had some cred.
Yeah, I really appreciated that. Towards the end of the book, there's a graph or a list of the
I
family
couldn't
tree.
understand it.
Yeah, I mean
That's
his
right.
penmanship is not the best, but
I love the
it's,
fact that he didn't bother to type it or anything.
Yeah.
We're just going to
he might as well have been on a napkin.
take a picture of the notebook.
It's like one of those on Wikipedia, but you can't read it.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you guys watch any of the live videos or interviews
Snorting Dog.
online?
I know. No, I watched some music videos of like live shows.
Because he's very Canadian the way he speaks, which I knew reading it, but then watching the interviews, it totally changed how I read the book and what I was hearing when I read the book. Did you guys see new music videos?
No.
I saw, I don't
that
know,
cat doing?
3 to 5 songs, and it looks like they'd play in front of a green screen, and then it looked like someone. It looks very not professional, which I understand is kind of punk. Almost looks like making fun of itself.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure that they're that creative or smart from reading this book. So, you
Accidental genius.
You hear of these
Yeah.
like songs that are being written, and then he's like, and then I wrote this song, and you got the lyrics to the song, which in the book on the page they're so small I couldn't really read them.
Yeah.
But I'd be like, okay, so then he just ripped off this song, and it didn't seem like a lot of craftsmanship or effort with the songs.
I would say that even though I think there are songs that are good, I don't think he's a good songwriter.
Yeah.
Like, especially lyrically, I'm not a fan. I think as far as punk lyrics go, they're fine, and if you're in the mood for D.O.A, they're fine. But if you just to read some of the lyrics, they're
It's not
pretty
poetry.
Yeah, they're pretty
Raw.
bad, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
You know. I feel like what maybe made them so unique was they were political.
Yeah.
They kept touring, which is really cool.
The nights of like partying all night to get up early in the morning, or they've been touring really hard and played a hard show, and then they go to crash at a friend's apartment, and they've invited everybody over to party with D.O.A.
Did it make you guys not ever want to go on tour? Because reading what they went through, it sounded like it was consistently awful.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it was like the alternative would be living in Vancouver, working in a wood pulp processing plant, or being a janitor. And so, I mean, I thought it was really interesting in the book how...
Or that one place, the can place.
Where
Where the guy, he would put his cigarette butts in the blueberry pulp.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then he peed in one of the...
Canned corn.
Canned
It was
corn,
Canned
and-
corn,
yeah.
yes. The canned corn. He peed in it, and he never ate it again after that. But I mean, if you have that dead end, if your life is that kind of dead ender, why not get in a van when you're out of money and drive crisscross around like the continent and stay with people who adore you, even though you're not making any money. That's kind of what was happening.
Yeah, that to me was the funniest thing. It's like, okay, we need to make some money, so we're going to go on the road where they've never made any money.
I know. What about the squat that had the toilet that didn't work?
Right.
And they just piled on and shit right on the pile of shit anyway. I noticed through the book this theme of shit going
There was
along
a lot
with
of poop.
Shithead. There
I
was
I actually have
a lot of poop stuff.
in my
the
notes.
book.
I have a little
Yep.
poop icon.
Oh, yeah,
that keeps
yeah.
showing up.
Yep.
Where's the
That was
poop?
definitely a theme. And headlocks.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people put into headlocks. I mean, beyond David Lee Roth, it seemed like Randy Rampage was constantly either in a headlock or putting somebody in a headlock,
Right.
which was freaking hilarious. And then I was just like, they're hockey dudes.
Right.
I mean, that's why they're getting people in these clenches and headlocks all
He
the
mentioned
time. It's 'cause
hockey
they're
a lot.
Yeah.
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 Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which isn't very
Oh,
punk
Canada.
rock, but
They played. They had the yep.
Sure makes you not scared to fight, I think.
he did seem to live in the moment despite all the problems he had going on. And
He had to be pretty optimistic overall just to think it's going to get better because he never describes anything awesome
Yeah.
And I
happening.
think the fact that they lasted
Yeah.
so long is a pretty big deal because a lot of the bands he mentioned didn't last. And I think that he, for a punk rocker, kind of had that balance of, I'll get wasted, I'll hang out with people that punch each other, but I'm also not going to go this far.
Yeah.
Right.
Chuck Biscuits and Dimwit was a known drug user. I mean, Dimwit had a reputation. He was in the Subhumans, and when he was in the Subhumans, it was because he couldn't hold his shit together.
Yeah.
He was like a functioning junkie. It was known in the punk rock scenes. Chuck Biscuits, same thing. I mean, he just basically whatever drugs. And those guys were brothers.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Addictive gene.
yeah, exactly. They had
Yeah.
that gene. And I think like Shithead was just more like, I have a brand going. This can turn into something. Eventually, my kid might be in a Hollywood movie, right? I mean, so he knew if I stay with
who's
this
talking
long
to?
enough, so if I stay with this long enough, then, suddenly there's going to be maybe some kind of future, where I can just be Mr. D.O.A.
Yeah.
So Subhumans, that confused me.
Yeah.
There's two Subhumans.
Right.
But the one we know about is the UK. The one most people know about is UK Subhumans.
I think so. I think it depends. I mean, the UK Subhumans are really more popular, but I didn't know about them. I knew about the Canadian Subhumans first.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
From Maximum Rock and Roll, which was this fanzine that was put out in the late
Would you call that a
70s,
fanzine?
80s.
I actually literally
Pretty
thought that
good
was
magazine.
a full magazine.
It was a magazine, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's where I learned about the different subhumans from that. But yeah, that was a good publication for sure. This book actually sent me into a kind of a deep research hole looking at what was like archived online from Maximum Rock and Roll, which is pretty cool. That's still around today.
Right.
Yep.
One of my favorite things about the book is all of the punk names I've never heard of,
Yeah.
which could be fake for all I know.
How
but
they just made up punk names when they were for anybody who joined the
You're
band.
talking
or-
about the band names or the
Well,
people
just-
names? Because like that.
people names too. Brad Cunt.
right.
Yeah.
What were some other ones?
I loved like making Chuck about puking.
Right. The
Because-
biscuits is about puking. It's not about his buns. It's not about. It's about the fact that he was up Chuck.
Yeah.
And somehow they got Chuck biscuits out of it.
Sergeant Nick Penis Band, which is, I mean, that's one of the greatest band names I've ever heard, to be honest.
It's funny that those guys were like 70s stoners / classic rock guys when they started out.
Yeah.
The pictures of them with like long hair. And then it seems like that's how the punk bands start. It's like, okay, you are into glam, you are into like, classic rock, psychedelic rock. And then suddenly it's like, time to cut our hair and become a punk band.
Oh yeah, they mentioned the bandmate that had so much punk rock gear that it took
Yeah.
forever to get through the
through,
metal.
Yeah, and then he like left.
He almost missed the flight.
He almost
right?
missed the flight because
That was
because he
pretty
left
funny.
his
So
trinkets
so he
behind.
gets through, and then they get to the
Right.
plane. He's like, "Oh, I forgot all my trinkets."
Yeah.
So he has to go back.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Plane's leaving.
Yep.
And so they go to chase him, and then he's like apparently wearing a kilt. He's got a mohawk, I think.
Yeah,
And all of
they're
a sudden
like-
they think they're gonna leave, and then they see him on the little like golf cart with a light on it, and they make it.
And he's
just
totally
in time.
wasted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, he's totally
This fucking
wasted.
guy. Did you guys know that supposedly Kurt Cobain met Courtney Love at a D.O.A. show? 'Cause
Not-
I'd never heard that.
I
I'd never
knew
heard
that
that
they
either.
met at a punk show in Portland.
Satyricon, supposedly he tackled her. That's what I've heard. They were at the Satyricon. They locked eyes. He tackled her. They wrestled around.
So it started healthy.
Yeah, exactly. But Dale from the Melvins says that's not true at all. He said they met, but there's a bunch of different apocrypha about like how they met.
There's a funny video of Billy Corgan talking about how basically, and I think they had met probably by this point, Kurt Cobain and Courtney Love. She like went to go see Billy, and Billy was like, "I don't want to be with you," and so she immediately went to Kurt Cobain, the next rock star she knew, and then they were together.
Why am I not surprised in the slightest?
That was what he said, but he kind of said it where he's like, "I don't, want to talk about it, but if you must know."
I'm willing to believe anything terrible that somebody tells me about Courtney Love.
I mean,
The,
she's not the best person in the world.
the Babes in Toyland guitarist claims that she was dating Kurt, and then Courtney basically stole Kurt. So I'd heard a little bit about the Bad Class show before, but I never really
Yeah.
got like the full perspective. Like I'd read a little online about that.
Oh,
like, a
right.
couple years
About what
ago.
a turd Mick Jones was, and he had his kid out there
and
trying
then-
to play drums up
Exactly.
until the last second. D.O.A. It's like,
Yep.
come on.
Sabotaging their sound check, and then all the DOA. I didn't know the DOA fans like went out and like basically vandalized their tour
Yeah.
bus and wrote a bunch of shit all over it. And then for Mick Jones from the stage to say something about that shitty metal band DOA,
Yeah.
which is just like, okay, you're asking for it.
So, what about the David Lee Roth story? I thought that was one of my
Best.
favorite ones.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a wuss. He's a total wuss. Diamond Dave, from what I've heard.
Oh, that's right. He
A
was
really rich surfer guy.
Yeah.
completely fucking drunk is the way that he's listed.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so they put him in a headlock and trying to get him to do his, which I don't even remember what the noise he makes.
Ow! That Like
Yeah.
you know that.
We could
But he
plug in
can't-
"Running with the Devil" if you
Yeah,
like. I mean, it starts the first album, first song.
He just does it
Yeah.
through every song.
Yeah, it's trademark.
But then he's in the headlock, so he can't do it.
Right.
Yeah, which is great. We're gonna cut off your vocal cords and ask you to talk. It's the old whistle or lose it trick.
And then David Lee Roth saying, we're really not that different, our bands. We just
Trying
kind
to
of
be
like,
a nice guy.
we're just kind of like coming from different places, but we're really doing the same thing. And I'm sure, like, if you're drunk Randy Rambage, you're just like, fuck you, David Lee Roth.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get you in a headlock. You know?
Right.
Yeah, no, it was Biscuits. Looked at him in half amazement, half in disgust. I don't think so,
Oh, was it
man.
Biscuits? Yeah. Yeah. I went into a deep Biscuit search when I was reading this. I was
Deep
really
Biscuits.
fascinated by his development as a drummer. So I listened to the first record, and I was like, he's not the Keith Moon protege yet on this record. He doesn't really get there. It takes like a couple of records, and a lot of playing. And he's the younger brother, so he's in the shadow of Dimwit. But
And he's got something to prove,
I
right?
was but I was really interested, because he just started out like in the practice room playing some bongos, being encouraged, and then he emerges as this monster drummer compared to Keith Moon. So the first record, I'm like, he's not there yet, but I think it's by War on 45 where I'm just like, Biscuits is an animal. And I remember seeing him with Black Flag in '82, I think. That's when he was with them on drums and just being blown away by like what an animal he was on drums. He was really good. And then I listened
did
to
like how many times he mentioned Keith Moon, because Keith Moon's my favorite drummer, and the fact that he apparently was like Keith Moon was pretty intriguing.
Yeah.
So I went and looked. I think at his Wikipedia page. So he played for Black Flag, D.O.A. of course,
Yeah.
and then Danzig.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Social Distortion.
okay, yeah.
Yeah. Now I think he's in Social Distortion now.
There was a litany of others, it
So,
seems
yeah,
like.
I'm
but
trying to think of some other bands too.
And I'd
he
never
might have been
heard of him, and he's like punk legend basically.
one of punk's most undependable drummers,
Yeah.
from what I've heard. Yeah.
that's so punk
Which I
rock.
also spent like 20 minutes looking at Danzig Wikipedia pages.
I've only dipped my toe in Danzig, and the Danzig that I've dipped my toe in,
I'm not a big fan.
Didn't they play with the Misfits?
Like one of their
they were, like,
first
super
shows.
super young. The Misfits were like super young.
And he went on stage, and he thought it was a set list from another band playing a different night, and he started making fun of all the song titles. And one of the big buff dudes from Misfits came up and was pissed.
yeah.
So they played with Soul Asylum, and they didn't make fun of him, which I thought. I've heard Soul Asylum used to be cool. I've never heard their early stuff. But were they punk? Were they?
They were loud, man.
They
When
were
I
like
saw
that
'em-
Minneapolis sound. They were like Husker Du. Bob Mould produced their first record, and The Horse That You Rode In On, I think, was their first one. For Twin Tone.
Yeah,
I
they were on
believe.
Twin Tone.
Twin Tone, yeah. Yeah.
So their early stuff is good,
It was.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
saw their first tour,
and it was punk.
and it was
With the
yeah,
Huskers?
No, they weren't with the Huskers.
Okay.
It was just they were in Lexington, and they were loud. And then when that Runaway Train came out, I was like, "Is this the same band?
Then he started dating Winona.
Is that what happened?"
Yep.
Yeah.
My dad owned that.
Your
album.
dad dated
Really?
Winona?
My dad fucked Winona like all the time.
In front of you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you could at least hear it from the other room.
Does she have a big
Son,
brown
can you
beaver?
watch it? Is that the Winona they're talking about?
Primus? Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, she dated Les Claypool too.
Oh wow.
So
I suddenly like her more now.
is saying that she had a big brown beaver a good thing or a bad thing then? I've always been confused by that song because
I think it's a great
I
thing.
don't think that they're insulting her at all. I mean, they are saying that it's big, which some ladies would consider to be an insult, but at the
No,
same
it's a great
time,
thing.
it was aggressive.
I'd say that's
It didn't
the
let
highest
anybody
compliment you could get as a
pick
woman.
on him. Is that you have a big brown beaver and that you show it off to all your friends.
Yeah.
I've had friends like that.
So I have a funny Soul Asylum story that is probably one of the funniest stories I remember. I grew up in Georgia where, everyone's very religious. And I remember one of my friend's parents had acquaintances of mine with her when she was buying someone a birthday present. The birthday present was the Soul Asylum CD or cassette probably at that time. And it was like, number 1 album or whatever, number 2 album. And she knew this person liked Soul Asylum, so she bought it. But it had the naked babies' butts on the cover.
How does Joey Shithead relate?
And so she purchased the album, opened it, took out the cover because she didn't want, get a CD with nudity on it. And she was going to throw it away. And this kid that I know that was like friends of the lady's son was like, I'll take it.
In a creepy way. I'll take this off your hands.
That's so weird.
I actually had a similar experience where a friend gave me the first Lil Kim album. And he was like, I don't want this in my house anymore.
Because it makes him have weird feelings.
Because it's like making him jack off too much, I think.
Right.
What's on the
Lil Kim,
cover?
she's on a bear skin. It's really very provocative.
It's the same. It's the
first-
same cover as Prince. and he jacked off to that just as much.
Yeah, probably. Except for we were both in our early 20s, so I was just like, yeah, I'll take it.
Sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. I'm gonna jack off with or without this
Exactly,
little Kim.
yeah. I'm not going to feel guilty about this Lil Kim cover, so I'll take it off your hands, definitely.
The censorship thing is another thing that I don't feel got enough time.
Oh yeah. Well, that whole Tipper Gore thing.
Yep.
They
Yeah.
were right in the middle of that. I remember.
Distribution of harmful matters to minors.
Right.
And it was artistic renditions of genitals.
Was that the Frankenchrist insert from the Dead Kennedys that they're talking about?
I think so, yeah. It was a 14-year-old girl in San Francisco managed to purchase this album. Supposedly that may be where the parental advisory sticker came into existence, was this specific case. But, I mean, if you let your kid walk into a record store and spend their money on whatever they want, you can't be upset that they come home with art.
Right.
And that's what it was, it was art, and we should know
Not only art,
by
it was
now.
art by the guy that created the Alien, and art by the guy that created the cover of Brain Salad Surgery.
Like
Emerson,
Alien
Lake
is
and-
in like the movie
Alien.
He's been interviewed to say that he thinks that the alien form is sexy. I'm trying to figure that out, and I've been trying to figure
It's
that
totally
out for years.
sexy.
Well,
What is it? The second mouth that pops out of the first one?
Oh, yeah.
That could be, and the vagina dentata going on with that.
If you go to make out with Joe,
There you go.
and all of a sudden the second mouth comes out,
Yeah.
aren't you gonna like that? You can.
How
switch
could you
back and
not?
forth.
like that.
I would probably not, considering the teeth that are involved.
But there's a lot of saliva going on too. Remember,
see,
there's a lot of seepage and drippage on the Alien.
Yeah, I'm still not turned on. Sorry, you're
So
not.
if you haven't seen the insert to Frankenchrist, it's literally like 8 assholes with
Hold
8
on.
dicks going into those assholes
on.
with 8 assholes
I might
under it
start
with
to be
8
on the
dicks
sides of the
going into
Canadian
that
police
out.
here in a minute.
So I
Makes me
see.
want to listen to that album. I haven't listened to that.
Frankenchrist?
Yeah.
Yeah. I personally think the Shriners in the minicar is more
That's
offensive on the
great.
cover
I love that. Yep.
than the dicks going into the assholes on the insert.
So more band names I like: Sick Fucks, Dayglow Abortions.
Have you not heard the Dayglow Abortions?
I don't think I've heard their music, but I've heard of them.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of the Sick Fucks.
Yeah. That was a new one for me.
Oh wow, that is
Never heard of them either.
graphic. That is not just arty. That is.
Obscene? Say it. Say it, Mom.
Their parents were right.
No,
Say it,
I don't
Tipper
think
Gore.
that- because of the way that they're positioned. Hold on to your buttholes. This might get weird. So there's this
Ahead of
Japanese porn out there where they're girls, but when they get excited, their clits get so big that they can fuck each other with it.
Whoa, that's cool.
So it's lesbian sex, but it's lesbian sex with dicks. So straight guys like it, straight girls like it, gay guys like it that aren't completely out of the
There's something
closet
for
yet.
everybody.
Question:
And this looks like that.
Is there some kind of male version of this where guys
Get a
Dicks.
Madam Butterfly thing going on.
get small
Well, what I have
and
seen,
it's kind of like a vagina?
No, they go so far as to like the labia become like balls, but it's clear that they're not like fucking the
So what is
butthole
the
because there's
fantasy?
still a butthole. So what is the what?
So what is the fantasy? Like, if you're watching that and say you are a lesbian, is the idea like that you wish that you could grow a penis just for that experience?
I have had a conversation with one lesbian that said that she was very disappointed that without a tool she could not truly fuck her girlfriend.
But would it be like so sensitive at that point if it was that
You
engorged?
think so? You wouldn't want the wind to blow. Yeah, it's like when adult men get circumcised.
Yeah.
And then they can't handle the brushing up against their clothing.
Right.
Yeah, it seems like it would be we got derailed.
I didn't even know I was circumcised until I learned about circumcision.
What chapter? 4?
And Sharon knew somebody like he was 19 or 20 in college, and like he comes to college, which I can't imagine is like, okay, you don't want to get aroused. It's like, okay, I'm 19, my dick is permanently hard.
Yeah, the wind blows and
Yes.
yeah, no, I couldn't imagine. I've known one adult man who has had to get it done, and it was for medical reasons, and it was after
It was because
an injury.
he thought it would be cool.
No, it was after an injury, and he had a lot of really bad swelling from the injury, and so as part of the healing process, they had to remove it because it was like cutting off circulation.
You have more band names to get back on track?
No.
He crashed
I'm
his
very
motorcycle.
interested. Keep going.
And landed on his penis.
Scene in the book where, like, is it Randy?
I did want to say, we already skipped past this, but so the idea of growing a penis and then it just going back where it's not in your way, to me,
Yeah.
sounds
It's like a white guy's life.
A grower, not a
would be
shower.
like a dream.
Growing
because,
on a shower,
like, I
man.
feel like it's like in the way.
Yeah.
And like if I get kicked there, it hurts more.
Yeah.
So if it could just be functional when I need it.
Detachable penis.
Yeah,
Thank you,
exactly.
King Missile.
I found it next to a broken toaster oven. I took it home, washed it off.
Do you ever have the scene or the scenario where, like, suddenly one of your testicles is missing and you're just like, shit, what happened? And you start pushing and it pops
of
back
them.
down. Right, yeah, exactly.
And my penis, yeah.
One of my first boyfriends, that happened, and he didn't warn me.
It's,
I got very confused and worried.
Yeah, that's nice.
I've been
And I
worried that it's not
definite-
coming back. I'm just like, where?
I'd been down there before with him, and
Wait
to
a
go
minute.
down there again and be like, well, I knew there were two.
I could have sworn you
What?
had 2 of those.
Hey, mister, are you holding out on me? Are you only half as aroused today?
Well, and I mean, this was when I was like first figuring out that I had a vagina, so of course I knew
How old
nothing.
were you?
And like 8. I'm kidding. No, this is like 16, 17.
That's when you figured out?
No, I still haven't figured it out.
Yeah. No one ever
I got
figures
something
it
down
out.
there.
And I knew that he was like a nervous virgin too, so I was like,
So you didn't mention it?
no, I immediately thought that he
could
was
be a
like
band name.
that he was
Nervous
injured
virgin.
and being unwilling to tell me because I was near his penis, and that he didn't care what happened because I was near his penis. So
Most people don't care
yeah,
when you're near.
There was a Portland band called Nervous Christians in the 90s. I remember when I first moved here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay, so another band named Fudge Tunnel.
Oh yeah, Fudge Tunnel is great. I
Have
think
you listened to them?
that they were in heavy rotation at the radio station.
Really?
Yes, Fudge
Where
Tunnel
were they
and
from?
Cat Butt,
Cat.
and their album was called Journey to the Center of Cat Butt. I still remember that.
Made me wonder, is there a chocolate tube band?
A gerbil tube lariat.
That's so fun.
I actually wrote down all of the bands that I was on a bill with. in
Let's
the
hear it.
book. Many bands in this book. So,
Nirvana, Bachman Turner Overdrive,
no, not BTO. I would love to play with them,
Sex
though.
Pistols, Clash.
Youth Brigade, 7 Seconds, Verbal Abuse from San Francisco, who I forgot about. And then reading this book, I was like, that's right, Verbal Abuse.
These are all punk.
Yeah. All these kind of like scrappy van touring, bands. D. Kreutzen from Milwaukee.
Oh yeah,
Played
Dick
with
Kreutzen
them.
was great, man.
On, what were they on? Touch and Go? Yeah, D. Kreutzen.
Decroach.
It means the women who grow giant clitorises that can be used as a penis.
I think that's Das Damen.
Oh, right, it is Das Damen,
Das
actually.
Damen is the women who grow the giant.
Clitorises is one
And
of my
I
favorite
think
bands.
Diamanda Glass did it on tour.
Crucifix.
Yes,
It's on a bill with the
you played with the
Crucifix.
Crucifix?
Yeah. Steve Shelley's first band, guy from Sonic Youth. Scream, pre-Dave Grohl, and I think with Dave Grohl at one point. That's pretty much it. And on page 219, Christine Abbey was somebody who I bought drugs from here in the 90s. She comes down
Here in
from
Portland?
She comes down to D.O.A. Yep, she comes down to, and she was always talking about Shithead. And when this book came out, she was like, Shithead better mention me in this book. The amount of times that he slept on my fucking floor.
Does he?
And yeah, page 219.
Oh, okay.
Like right at the end. And she's like a copy editor. And so she came down to the last, in the book, she drives down from New York where she lived before Portland, New York City, where she was a big rent control advocate, punk rocker, and I'm sure a legal substance, dealer. Probably shouldn't use her real name here, but it's in the book anyway. And she drove down from New York to Pennsylvania for their last show. But when I would go over there to buy sweaters, which was our code,
Sweaters.
The guys in college that all got high called it a warm coat.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd go get sweaters from
What
her.
coats do you need to buy? I'm going to buy about an ounce of warm coats.
Yes,
Right,
I needed an ounce of sweaters. We bought a lot of sweaters from her in the 90s.
Cardigan, a pair of socks. So wait, what is this? What is this sweater?
Weed, like
Where did that originate from?
that was her thing. Just
Her thing.
call me and like, what do you need? I need like 2 sweaters. Be like, are you knitting? I'd be Christine. It's John. Are you knitting? Yeah. What do you need? 2 sweaters? Yeah, come on over. So I'd go over and
just in case people were listening in on the. Okay.
yeah.
Nobody's ever paranoid
Well,
when they
you
smoke
you
weed.
gotta have some kind of bad code. So, but she was always talking about Shithead this and Shithead that, and I better be in the book. And also, Dee Dee Ramone used to stay at her house too. It was on like Stark and 28th. So like any band that came through,
That's
because
where
she
the
had the New York
Goodfoot is.
connection, right across the street
Yeah.
from Goodfoot was her house.
I'm really disappointed in like the little that Portland was mentioned. I was hoping to find someplace that was still around that they'd played at, and then we could try and go have drinks there.
Or take
To
a
make a
shit
point.
there, since
Or
they
take
took
a
a shit
shit there.
everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. What was the first punk show you went to?
That was a no-name punk
Okay,
show. It was just a
local?
local
Yeah,
thing.
sure, yeah.
But then after that, they're
Fudge
like-
Tunnel.
Yeah, it was Fudge Tunnel. I wish it was Fudge Tunnel. It was giant clitoris lady.
That's a good idea.
And then we're there and we're like just getting hammered, and the guy's like, the next band up's like, man, I hope it's like just some shitty metal band. And they're like, next up is Snow White, and it was just this total Cinderella ripoff because Cinderella was huge.
Right.
And they were all like Danzig'd out, they were buff, and had their shirts off playing rock and roll.
Nothing upsets a pickle lover more than a dull, soggy pickle. Pickle lovers always insist on the proud pickle. Heinz. No compromise, no shortcuts, no soggy pickle. Heinz stops at nothing to give you a pickle that tastes the way no other pickle does.
And like the countless times of not getting paid and them going to confront
Yeah.
the people or beat them up.
Their keg, right?
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
that's right.
Where the guy was
The
like,
promoter had an after
we
party.
don't have enough money for you and the other band. So
But we're gonna throw a party tonight.
I like this story where they're playing someplace and some guy is supposed to set. It's like a festival or something, and the guy is supposed to do the sound.
All right, it's an electrical issue.
Yeah.
It's a total electrical issue. It's not
Yeah.
had nothing to do with the sound. They were actually going to get electrocuted.
And so one of the guys, I forget who it is. But
It was
it's-
somebody sound checking for them that wasn't.
Yeah, it was Randy.
Yeah.
Randy was stuck on the microphone
That's
getting
He was
shot.
dancing.
Yeah, they thought he was dancing, but he was getting electrocuted.
Yeah, they say that when you're testing, if you're worried if something is electrified, that you always want to grab with your right hand so that you ground out through the right side of your body instead of hitting your heart. And he was grounding himself through his chest.
Right.
And then he went back on stage after that he was rattled, and then they convinced him to go back out.
Have you not had that happen, though, Deb? As much as you sing? Have you never just got the blue streak between both eyeballs?
Absolutely not. No, I've watched my dad get shocked many, many times, and I don't have any. My dad is unbreakable and is constantly. It's like the movie Unbreakable, like he combined both the bad guy and the good guy, where he's constantly getting injured and yet he survives.
Right.
He has on multiple occasions, because he's never willing to hire anybody to do a job for him, has found ways to shock himself, including, when you take the cover off of an outlet and to paint around it, and there's the 2 screws on the sides that hold the wires on. Yeah, you're not supposed to touch those.
Don't put your tongue on it.
Don't grab them with a finger on each screw. I mean, it only arches through your hand, so you're fine there. But no, he has on 2 separate occasions caused the power to go out on the house because it went through his body.
The first quote-unquote PA, because it wasn't a real PA that we ever had when I was growing up in bands, I would get a shock every time I touched my lips to the microphone, and I still wouldn't learn.
So what you're supposed to do when that happens is you just kind of eat the whole mic.
Yeah.
Deep throat
Well,
it.
I'd just be like, right there. And so.
Random, but I like the part where they have the landlord, Ed, who would just try to use their bathroom all the time.
Yeah.
And he would just be like, I think I got shit my pants.
I'm always excited by a story about somebody shitting their pants.
You should listen to the new Sedaris book. Or read it. I listened to it. You could read it, actually. It does.
Like a peasant?
It is, yeah. Yes, yeah, like a plebeian. You could read it. Well, I wonder if he did. I wonder if he did it by memory, or if he literally just. He was an awesome note taker.
I mean, those early ones where he was like taking the bus and using flour and water to put his posters up.
That was amazing.
And getting like the cops showing up being like, this is obscene.
Yeah, they didn't have glue,
Yeah.
so he made his own glue. Like, who's too poor to buy glue?
That's right, yeah.
You can just like not eat a full meal and buy glue. It's like $1.
Which is why gluten fucks your system.
Because it's glue.
Because it's glue. That was like one of my earliest memories. We were just dealing with Sharon's new gluten sensitivity, and like I come and I play with Molly Bang, and you're at the K-hole waiting tables, and you're just like, God damn it! If I have to hear one more person ask if this is gluten free, I'm gonna kill somebody.
The reason I was so angry is because the girl that I was living with did not actually have a gluten intolerance of any sort. Even if it is something that like truly bothers you, it would be like, we'd go get Thai food and she'd ask for the gluten-free soy sauce. And then literally, I swear to God, this happened. I'm not exaggerating. We take it home and it tasted too good. So she threw it away because she thought that they used regular soy sauce.
This tastes delicious. Gluten makes me horny. That's why I don't eat it.
Oh, because you don't want your dick to just fly off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forgot that happens.
Yeah. Dicks fly off. Panties fly off.
So I like the back of the book where it mentions they list everything. So, 25 years, 3,000 shows, 10 vans.
Yeah, I don't know how they got to the 10 vans number.
331 tires.
Who's recording this information?
212,000 beers, which that's crazy. They counted every single one.
I was just looking for this.
9 riots, 28 punch-ups, 27 busts. Is that correct English? Busts?
Oh, I don't know. Partridge in a pear
12
tree on
deaf
there, too?
sound men. What does that mean?
I have no. I think.
They hated the sound of the show.
Yeah.
Busts.
Something I was very impressed with in this book is while I'm seeing this from a different lens because I have a vagina, and while this was very male centric, I do actually. I get all uppity about it. And you guys will be like, let's pull out our dicks and measure, and I'm like, but I don't have one.
That's what we were planning on after we
Right. We were gonna touch tips.
God, every time.
just touch and then nothing else.
Yeah, then but you can't look at each other when you touch tips.
Just for a
You have to
split
look
second and
away.
then done.
If
You have
it's
to
just
look
for a
away.
second,
Go
it's
home.
not gay. Yeah.
It's not.
But they it is a very male-centric book, but I don't think that was at all by intention. It's that there was no women around, but
They didn't have women in what year was this? Like 19.
yeah, it was men
In
only.
the 70s.
But he always made a point of like commenting when that there was a female musician, and he was I can't remember what the name of the band was, but one of the early bands that they were working
Frightwig?
with, the all-girl 15-year-old group, and then like later on with the Slits, and he always makes a point to mention all-girl band. Yeah, go girls. And even at one point I noticed instead of saying men and women, he says women and men, which is small. It's a very small thing, but you know, it's one of those things where you can't just say it the same way every single time, because
He's a
then
decent
you're
guy.
Yeah, and it's that
That shithead.
shithead. Yeah.
My one complaint is I think he should have been called Sharthead. Personally,
They didn't have Sharts yet.
They didn't have Sharts yet. No.
I
didn't
sharted.
until
Joey
Alone
sharted.
or
Came Molly.
or pooped. They didn't fart and poop at the same time.
Right.
That's a new invention.
So Deb, have
created.
you the one book you should ask John for, because he loaned it to me, is the John Doe discussion about the LA punk bands. Mm-hmm. And it talks a lot about that early scene where the Go-Go's were actually part of that punk scene before it all splintered. And they said it was very female inclusive
Yeah.
until the TSOL dickheads came up and started beating the shit out of everybody.
Yeah.
And the whole hardcore
the
scene.
band or the fans?
They're
both.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
There are Orange County jocks who would just show
Should I
up.
not like TS?
And I'm a little.
It's hard for me to like them.
I love TSOL, but I'm
Even
conflicted.
he talks about it himself on
Grisham.
YouTube. Jack Grisham, he's like, you know, sometimes I wake up at night and I think about somebody's eyeball popping out where I kicked him in the skull too much, and it's just like, but I'm not going to feel bad about that. Mm-hmm. But anyway, the point is, I agree. There was no women there. There were literally 4 women in our scene, and they were hardcore.
Yeah.
Kurt Cobain was talking about how really the future of rock is women.
Yeah. No, and that's recently both Scott and I went and saw the Breeders, and their warm-up band was called Post Pink, and I really, really loved them because they weren't pretty, and they weren't melodic, and they were screaming, and they were messy, and they were amazing.
Have you heard or seen Sailor Poon?
I've heard of.
I'll listen to any band with Poon in the title.
And it gets way better. So they're a 3-piece from Austin, all women, just total punk and awesome punk. But the their merch that they have at their shows are granny panties with Sailor Poon on the back.
Nice.
And their first album, which to me has multiple meanings and is very dear to my heart, is called Poony Tunes.
That's beautiful.
And they're great. I wholly recommend Sailor Poon. If nothing
I'm
else
down.
comes out of this podcast, everyone go listen to Sailor Poon.
Do they dress like sailors?
They do not. They're just women.
So I liked the story of how they became called D.O.A. The guy says after a couple of songs, he said, "Hey, you guys are good. My name's Harry Homo. You be the band, I'll be the singer. We'll make $1 million and we'll call it D.O.A." And then on the next page, it's like we realized after the first show that Harry Homo was a great guy and a good frontman, but he lacked something essential to all music: timing. So for one page, the guy names D.O.A.
Yeah.
And his
Right.
name
Was
is
that the one
Harry
that walked
Homo?
in with a
That's
girl
it,
on
yeah.
each arm?
Again,
Yeah.
is there not an entire encyclopedia about that story?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. He comes in with a girl on each arm.
Why
Just
is he so
some-
pimp?
Yeah.
Like, what makes him think that he's so great? We never learn that. Like,
Whatever happened to Harry Homo? Do you guys like the name D.O.A.?
I do not.
I don't either.
But
Really?
but the reason that I don't like
it's
it,
too of the time. I mean, it's not very original. There was
I don't
SOA,
like
DOA,
acronyms.
DRI.
I don't like acronyms either.
I think Shithead got really lucky because he knew Dimwit. I mean, that's my take on the whole band. Like Dimwit played everything. They were just like, okay, he was the drummer. Then we needed a bass player, and it's just like, what's Dimwit doing? Oh, he's in the Subhumans. He's willing to join us again. We need a guitarist, before we get like, what was the last guitarist name? Dave. Yeah. So they're like, we need a guitarist in Dimwit. I mean, like Dimwit was like the multi-instrument. He was like the
and
talents.
on that video
I mean,
that you sent out when you're like, showing about the Montgomery brothers.
Yeah.
It's like Dimwit wasn't going to get paid because they couldn't play the show, and he's like, "Fuck that!" Yep. And he plays the bass and the drums.
Right.
The book that I bought this one used. There were 6 stickers. There were 6 price stickers layered over each other. So yeah, it's gone around the block a couple of times. But yeah, they're like, I would have loved to have seen an index that said Victorian pork on this page, this page, this page, this page, and this page. That would have been really helpful to help, like,
or Fudge Tunnel,
or Fudge Tunnel,
exactly. Or Sergeant
Fudge
Penis
Tunnel.
Nick Band.
Victorian pork is my favorite of the names, just because it's a nice, back and forth of fancy and not so fancy. No, this rambling train of thought that the book was actually initially when I picked it up kind of hard for me to follow. I don't normally read biographies, or it felt kind of like.
And why is that? Why do you not like biographies?
You don't like real life? Basically?
Honestly, I want to identify with the lead, the hero, let's say. And in this case, I think that his stage name is very appropriate because I cannot identify with this man because he is a shithead. There are a lot of circumstances where I read about something he did, and if that was a friend of mine and they did that in front of me, I would not be their friend anymore.
You're kind of a shithead. I think if you compare him to other punks,
he's not that bad. He's definitely not that bad.
Yeah, it seems like he's a saint compared to.
He is.
But if you compare him to
TSOL guy, I mean Jack Grisham,
if you compare him to anyone that we hang out with, he's a shithead.
Yeah.
It would be hard, I feel like, to be friends with him, not just because of him doing that, but because also the people he apparently just hangs out with constantly seems so obnoxious that to go on tour with them, even if I'm okay with him, just all the other people he had to hang out with.
It does read like the only thing they ever do is drink Canadian beer.
Right. Yeah.
I don't really think that's the case.
No way. No, because they're fist fighting. They're like fighting each other in the van. They're doing that with the meat scene, and it's just like you said. Dimwit was probably coming off of heroin or something and freaking out, or or that scene where Dimwit wants like $90 from Wimpy to buy the jewelry that has it's got a tag for $1,800, so it must be valuable. And Dimwit's just like, I'm gonna buy this $2,000 ring for $90, and then I'm gonna trade it for heroin and be high for like the next 2 weeks.
You never buy jewelry off of somebody in a parking lot. I mean, maybe it's just that it happens more often now. But I feel like that's one of those just really obvious scams that you should know.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you buy in a parking lot?
Hookers.
Yeah.
Crack.
Okay.
Those things, that's standard parking lot
Those
material.
are standard
Instantly
parking lot
transferable materials.
Depending
like
on
you're getting within
So
minutes.
when you buy
maybe
a
oranges,
hooker in a parking
depending on where
lot,
you are.
That's on the up and up.
It's going to be worth that value.
Right.
Sorry, if I buy a hooker where?
If you buy a hooker in a parking lot.
You're getting your money's worth, whereas the ring, you don't know until you have it assessed, right?
Exactly. You look
Who
at a hooker
assesses
and you can tell what she's worth right then and
For
there.
$200, you're not going to get the
Is this
easy
good
one.
weed?
Yeah.
Is this
I
gonna
mean,
be
if you're
good?
buying a
I'll give you an
$90,
$1,800 blowjob for $20.
exactly. I mean, you can assess a hooker her value by
That was
first
a
glance.
$2,000 blowjob.
I don't know, man. I've never had a blowjob yet.
Do you think, on a side note, that with technology and with all the things they can do, that they will be able to create one that will grow like that?
Absolutely. I absolutely believe it.
Absolutely.
Because right now, they can so you only have
She's
erectile tissue in a couple of places in your body. And
Rectile?
erectile tissue. So it's the part that
Areola,
makes your penis
frenum,
get bigger, makes clits get
clitoris.
bigger. It also is the tissue inside your sinuses that gets.
Which is why it feels
That's why my
so great
nose
when
grows.
someone.
yeah,
That's why it
it's
feels so great when someone puts their
When
dick
you-
in your nose.
when you lie. No, it's when you have an
So
allergic reaction.
that's the real story behind
And you get-
Pinocchio.
Yeah, it's that
His erectile
he's getting a
tissue was
huge
gone
boner
wrong.
on his face. Yeah, that's what Tinkerbell was in the
Lie.
Tinkerbell in the toy box yelling lie, lie. Lie to me, Pinocchio. But no, you have erectile tissue in your sinus cavities, and that's what gets inflamed and engorged when you get
Question: Does that have anything to do with when you sneeze it feeling so good, or is that?
That's a really
The
good
nasal
question.
orgasm.
And sometimes you like sneeze and it hurts really bad and nothing comes out.
Oh yeah, blockage.
Yeah, I imagine it would be like, no, but you can have for injuries, they can like take erectile tissue from a cadaver and put it in your business
Really?
to help repair crush injuries.
Crush?
Do they
Crush
put it
injuries.
in your business and then make it erect, or they?
It'll work again. Yeah. No, from the article that I
It's
read,
a grafting thing. It's not just
Yeah.
someone shoving a cadaver penis in.
it's
your
not
vagina.
just a full cadaver penis. No, it's a Franken dick.
Oh, Frankenchrist. Have you
we're
guys seen
full
Kissed?
circle.
The Drew Barrymore movie. No, that's never.
That's never been kissed.
Now, this
All
is,
right.
This is about a woman who breaks into morgues and gets a man erect for one last time.
TSOL.
And TSOL?
Code Blue. I want to fuck the dead.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
And fucks him. And it's one of the greatest movies ever, I think.
Kissed is one of the greatest movies ever.
I mean, well,
You're being serious with about that? It's worth watching.
I mean, I really enjoy watching it. I can't say it's like The Godfather or 2001:
Is
Space
there-
Odyssey, but it is very enjoyable.
Is there like a time limit? I mean, because I imagine it has something to do with rigor mortis. Is there like a
I don't remember. It's
butter
been a while.
zone for when you can fuck a corpse?
I don't know. All right, since we've delved into this, how are we gonna wrap this up?
How much time we got left?
Well, I mean, however much time you want to take, but I was wondering, conclusively, personally, I've suggested the book. I like the book okay. I feel like he felt an urgency or requirement to give props to everyone rather than tell the story.
He did that a few times where it was like obvious that he felt like he owed someone something.
I feel the same way.
Like a thank you.
I feel the same.
Yeah.
Which I
Biafra.
don't like. I don't think.
Biafra definitely, and Johnny Lydon, all the shows with Pill at the end. He made
Yeah.
sure to cover those very thoroughly.
Yeah.
He wanted the sorry, a deep geek dive here. He was writing the Silmarillion, not the Lord of the Rings.
Right. Yeah.
So he called people geeks a lot. It never sounded like someone that most people I know would refer to as a geek. It just sounded like
Yeah.
someone that was his enemy that didn't have the same beliefs or
Yeah.
their
Right,
beliefs
not
didn't
like a
align.
nerd,
That's a weird
not like a
usage.
tech guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never understood what he meant when he said geek.
Yeah, it just sounded
Jerk.
like his enemy,
Yeah.
like someone that he currently at that moment didn't like.
Yeah, that was weird. Yeah.
It was weird, but I kind of like it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe it's a regional thing.
No, I felt like there was a lot of instances of like not liking the crowd based on probably the way that they dressed, and like not liking the hippies just because
That's
they
okay.
were long haired and greasy, and like, I mean, I
It's okay to be long hair and clean, John.
Greasy even.
but it feels like we're all on this crazy spaceship together.
Right.
And like there was one scene where a friend of theirs gets beat up by some jocks, and they decide to take it out on the jocks, but they don't necessarily beat up the same jocks. They're just beating up similar
jock.
jocks.
Right. Yeah.
And that is
Which I'm okay with personally.
well, I mean, of course, but at this, I mean, if we want to be truly forward-thinking humans, we probably shouldn't beat somebody up because of the way they act and dress.
We should beat him up. Why?
Because they're gay.
Yeah.
All the hairy homos.
Because they're geeks.
Yeah, Reagan was a great orator when he died. He wasn't a complete cocksucker like he was when he was alive. So going back, one of my favorite stories, they lived on $10 a day each. Mm-hmm. Until one time they got stuck in a jam, and he's like, okay, $2 a day for everyone.
Yeah.
And he's like, no way, we can't live on that. And he's like, look, dude, a 6-pack is what? Pack of cigs is 89 cents, and a 6-pack is $1.29.
And that's your food.
And that's your food.
Yeah.
What I was curious about is, it doesn't sound like he was able to save up money during the years he played constantly.
Yeah. But,
and then
he had a
retired.
daughter in the movies.
Yeah.
He had zillions
Look
and
who's
zillions of
talking
dollars.
now.
From Look Who's Talking Too.
That was a huge franchise.
It
Like, he
was.
talking 8.
You know,
Yeah.
after I just learned
Is that
about
when they eat
how
the
many
baby?
friggin' like,
Boss baby.
what are we on Sharknado? Fucking 20 or something now.
I'm okay with that.
I am.
All the other franchises can stop, but I actually enjoy Sharknado.
No,
I
One
still haven't
through
seen
five.
one.
my lovely.
Don't judge me.
At least watch the first one.
My super deep and
no idea what you're
intelligent
talking about.
husband watched one of them without me and tried to explain it to me, and I just couldn't. And it was like number 3 or 4 at that
It takes
point.
a lot of explanation to explain Sharknado.
Well, there were
3?
things like somebody gets eaten by a shark, and then like later in the movie, like blows their way out of the shark.
Of course.
Like they didn't get like torn up or anything on the way
If
down.
you get swallowed whole.
And they
Which
like
is every man's
they
dream.
like it was like they got swallowed, and then a gun got swallowed, so they got the gun and shot their way out.
Nice.
Watching a movie is about entertainment value. See,
Yeah.
if I
Unlike reading a
explained-
book.
If I explained like some shitty movie to you, you'd be like, he explained it. I don't really remember it.
Mm-hmm.
You will never forget what he explained to you about Sharknado.
That's true.
Because it's unforgettable. And
That's true.
It's bad. It's supposed to be bad. And I can understand if you don't want to watch the sequels. It's worth watching at least the first one. Even if you hate it, you won't forget it. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, I do have this tradition with a friend of ours where we watch bad movies, and then we buy cheap weak beer. The point is you have to buy weak beer, otherwise you're going to destroy yourself. And we watched the new version of the Jurassic Park movie, the first one. 2 people threw up out of the 3 of us. Like 3/4 of the way, we were like, I can't do this anymore. It's too ridiculous.
Please don't make me drink.
Did they throw up because the dinosaurs look so real?
Yeah, that must have been it. It is cinematic. It is high budget. It is entertaining. It is a nonstop general impact action-fueled thrill ride. But it's not a good movie.
Okay. Kind of want to see it now.
We also watched Ben-Hur. You don't need to see that.
No.
Way too long. Way too long. Do not start your classic movie night with Ben-Hur. People will not come over again. We have not been able to do another classic movie night.
Like more than one movie.
We were
and
trying
you
to set up
watched-
with our friends a list of all of the great movies that everybody has to see but nobody's ever seen. Hey, also, guys, you ever want to get on this?
I
This
wanna
is something
do
we're trying to
this.
do.
Yeah. Rosebud. Look Who's Talking Too.
That's what we should have done. Doesn't Look Who's Talking have some pop culture myth out there that there's like a shadow of like a dead man in the background or something?
That's Wizard
Maybe.
of Oz.
I thought that there was like there was both.
It was
of them.
what?
Like a guy
Wizard of
killed
Oz.
himself in the
Oh, yeah.
That's
shadows
Wizard of
in the
Oz.
background.
He,
I
the
swear
midget,
there's another one.
little person hangs himself.
Midget? Did you say midget?
I don't think I don't think midget's offensive.
We can't even. We're gonna have to erase this whole entire
There's
drive.
there's a term
Little
for
person
like
is not offensive, but midget is. Why is midget
I
offensive?
agree.
But dwarves, if you hear dwarves, you think of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
I
You
think of
a
I think
dopey
of
dwarf.
somebody living in a hole in the ground. Yeah, I don't think of a beautician.
I
that
think
has
of
to sit
little
on a
people that
stool.
are gonna try to gangbang a princess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, modern lady dwarves are also in a lot of porn.
What?
You know,
A lot about porn, Deb. Unfortunately, no one can see the face Deb just made.
No, I do know a lot about porn, and I don't really have a good answer why, because it just happens that I have conversations with people, and they tell me
It's
about
what we do
these
at work.
They
things.
know about porn. She
And
doesn't.
then-
Those people.
I mean,
them.
maybe it's because I've worked in bars a lot, so I have conversations with people when I'm completely sober and they're completely wasted, and I learn about a lot of things they don't
Right.
wouldn't normally admit to.
And
no,
I watch
the
5 hours of porn every night.
There's that.
$5 worth of porn.
$5 worth.
I thought you were gonna, I was like, what
a
are
lot
you?
of porn
Why
with
are
the
you
internet.
paying for porn?
So I was watching Carnival right as I was reading all this, and I'd been watching videos of Shithead. There's an actor, and I think you guys have all seen him. He's been in numerous movies. He's never like a main character, but he's been in like Oh Brother, and he's been in like TV shows. He's been in like My Name Is Earl and stuff. His name is Frank Collison, but he looks just like Shithead. Few years older, but he's got this face that looks like he's been beat up.
He's got one eye lower than the other, like somebody punched him really hard and it shifted everything. Ooh, there's a picture of him wearing a pussy hat.
Am I wrong? Does he not?
No,
No, it's the same shape head for sure.
I found a picture of him as a cowboy. But don't his eyes seem like they're not lined up with each other?
I have a last thought, and
Oh,
that
sure.
is changing your name legally so that it phonetically looks like how it sounds.
I totally get it because I come from a chain of English and Scottish people who have made the change. I'm married into a family where the name was a mistake through
In Ellis Island?
translation.
The Shitheads?
Well, it wasn't. It probably wasn't Ellis Island, but it was the same idea. They were asked. It was Ellis Island. It was. Or they were asking, "What's your name?" And the immigrant part of the family didn't understand, and they said where they were from instead of their name, and so they ended up being Trandom because it sounded like Trondheim, and it's in Norway. It's Miller, so
you
it wasn't
Norwegian?
even a hard name. I mean, they make fun of it in Robin Hood Men in Tights.
So his
You
original
changed your
was
name to
Shithead.
latrine.
She
Well, it
changed
used to
it
be Shithouse.
Yes.
Right.
Shithead. I think it was Shithead. And he was
Shithead.
like, I just want people to stop calling me Shithead. I get this legal now. It's Shithead.
I had somebody over the other day and they saw the book sitting there and they were like, I Shithead? And I was like, can you read?
Shithead.
My in-laws were here and my niece was in the bedroom looking at my books and she came out and was like, I see you're in front of the grandparents. I see you're reading a book called I Shithead, A Life in Punk. Amy's parents are in their 80s. They're like, of course he is.
Yeah.
She was like,
We never liked him.
She was like, I like punk rock. So I got her the Slater Kinney biography, the autobiography of what's her name?
Carrie.
Yeah, which I've read. It's pretty good.
Is it good?
Yeah.
All right, Deb. Would you recommend I Shithead?
I would recommend it if you are seriously interested in the punk scene, if you've got a long bus ride, if you have good attention span.
That sounds like a.
Love it.
Not really.
It's a good springboard to look into other
If all
things.
the books were burnt on the planet,
I would be
there's
very
nothing
disappointed
else
this
to
was the
read.
only one left.
Come on, really?
there's like 20 times where there was a word and it looks like he just looked up a synonym and threw it in there and it didn't fit and it stood out.
Well, that's
a
just
lot.
Canadian.
Those a few.
There's also a couple
They're not
typos.
speaking English,
There's-
Scott.
there's
They're
some-
speaking Canadian.
I always
totally
get
different
disappointed when
language.
there's a typo.
Canadian. I felt when I was reading it that there wasn't really a lot of filler.
Yeah, no, they went from one good thing to the next, but there
And-
was just so many of
And
them.
I'm okay with it almost being like a list.
Definitely cemented, which I think this is the purpose, cemented his place as a first generation punk rock statesman. For the amount of brain cells he has left at this point, too, I think that it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is
You know,
very
I mean,
impressive the
it's-
times and dates and people
Yeah,
involved. Somebody must have been writing some shit down. You got to write it down.
Till the lights go out.
Yeah, until the big e-impulse comes around.
That's right. It is amazing that, if you cut off the sleeves of your shirt, someone wanted to punch you in the face
Yeah,
because you were an asshole.
yeah.
But in their defense, someone went to the effort of making that sleeve, and then you're just destroying it. And also people that get cold or hot easy.
Then
are
you can give them their
lame.
sleeve. Your sleeve. You save the sleeve, cut it off, carry it around in your bag, and when somebody gives you shit, be like, "Oh, are you cold?"
Put your
Here you
sleeve
go.
on. Conclusion. I shithead. Half erect, John.
Half
Yeah, I'll
erect.
give it a thumbs up for effort.
Yeah.
You got?
Yeah, sure. Thumbs.
Thumbs. You have them.
Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, it depends on if you like D.O.A, I think you should read it. If you
Oh,
like-
absolutely.
If you like
If
Jello
you-
Biafra, if you like MDC, if you like Canadian punk.
Killed the squatters. That's what I say.
All right, I'm gonna cut it.
Cut it.
Goodbye. See you later. Gotta see you go, 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 go. Goodbye. See ya around. The bins. The farewell bins.
I just heard you go boom boom in your panties.
Did you say our top story is we go boom boom in our panties?
Yeah.